Welcome, everyone. This session is being brought to you by Puget Sound Pagan Pride. And this is. My screen just flipped. Richard and Rich, and he will be presenting us to us protecting our minds in complex times. Take it away, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome. So I'm going to actually be doing this slideshow, but I will try not to make this death by PowerPoint. So let me go out and share. This way you don't have to look at me for the whole time, just part of it. Let's see. So. Well, good. Can I just want to get confirmation? Can people see my slideshow?
You are sharing screen successfully.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. So, want to welcome you. This is basically protecting your mind in complex times, and we're going to look at it from a neurolinguistic approach. The subtext is your mind is somebody else's battlefield. So, good. So, who, what, where, how. So I'm Rich Benak. I'm a retired Air Force intelligence and counterterrorism officer. I'm also a registered hypnotherapist, a certified master neurolinguistic programming practitioner, and a private investigator. I have a master's degree in criminal justice and have several decades of experience in the martial arts. I work with a group called Shantil, and Shantil was sort of a European quasi-druidic group that we believe came out of the late 1700s, early 1800s neo-druidic revival. We don't actually know how old the group, Shantil is, but that seems to be our best guess. On how long it is. So the thing about Shantil is that makes us a little bit different is we believe that the whole magic is constantly moving and evolving, and we try to be there as well. So a lot of it is understanding the relationship between science and what is called magic. In many ways, as Siminoff had said, magic is just science that we don't understand. So, and that's, like I said, a lot of our focus is understanding this relationship. And in this presentation, you will see it as well. The Shantil group basically has three sections. We have song, spell, and sword. So the song are the bards. So they focus on music, poetry, linguistics, especially the study of Gaelic. The spell circle is kind of much more closer to a magical group, do a lot of trance work and energy work. That's the focus. The Sword Circle, I run the Sword Circle, and it's the security group of for Shantil. Back in the day when Shantil was back in the south, the Appalachian mountain areas, some of the local KKK types would come visiting. And so the Shantil Sword folks were often ex-military, and so they would go out and have a discussion about things. So right now here in the Pacific Northwest, it's a much different situation, but we still focus on providing security and psychic protection. And this workshop is very much about that. We're going to be working with a neurolinguistic programming. And in Simplify this is about understanding how people think, behave, and communicate, and how it affects their beliefs, emotions, and behaviors. And we'll talk much more about it. So, and I will be checking, let's see. I'll also be checking, like I said, questions. I don't want to get too off the track because it's kind of a tight schedule, but definitely if you have questions, let me know. And what this workshop is the goal of this is to help you recognize how social media, propaganda, and disinformation are all psychic attacks. I'm sure, I'm not the only one that's recognized that, over the last few months, I mean, there's a lot of people feeling very, very, unpleasant. There's just an energy around society. And a lot of this, there's many reasons for this, but one is that we're under a constant psychic attack from, again, media, social media, people we know and don't know. So recognizing that, we're going to understand some of the common techniques used. And we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to be looking at this from an attacker's perspective. We're going to look at how these processes are done as used by people who engage in it. And be aware, this is not secrets. This is common knowledge. It's being done every day. We're going to try and help people understand it so that they aren't fooled by it. We're going to teach you how to kind of mitigate and protect yourself from these attacks, how to keep yourself psychically safe. And then we're going to do a guided visualization to basically anchor in some defenses to kind of help protect yourself from these of attacks and just make you more aware of them. So when we talk about a psychic attack, we can think in terms of just symptoms. And a common one is this overwhelming sense of fear and dread about what's going on in our society. Maybe seeing other people or other groups as a danger or a threat or something to be afraid of. This overwhelming feeling of being tired or fatigued, kind of just achy.
Rich,
Yes.
we do have a pertinent question in chat. Someone wanted to know if it's okay to screenshot your slides.
Sure, that's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then, like I said, is constantly seeing threats or just negative thoughts. And it's important to recognize if you have these or similar symptoms, go talk with your medical professional or your mental health professional. Make sure that there's nothing else going on. Always the mundane before the magical. But if they come back and say, no, there's nothing wrong with you, it's a very real possibility, probability that this whole kind of psychic attack we're all getting under is at the cause of it. But definitely go talk with the health professional. Here's one of my favorite Dilberts out there, and the key on this is very much it's all about the story. That's it's right there. It doesn't have to be true, but you come up with a credible story, and especially if you can come up with it first, you can make anything. I especially like the whole thing is we don't need to make it sound credible, not even a little, and then oh, okay, it was failed because of climate change. So anybody who's ever done any project management or been involved with a project will definitely appreciate this humor. So now we're going to look at a psychic attack from a how it's done. So again, this is instead of a how to defend against it, it's understanding the how the manipulation is done. And the first step in any type of a psychic attack is you want to identify the behavior, the beliefs, and the emotions of the target. So when the people do these psychic attacks, they're trying to figure out what am I trying to get? What is my outcome of this? They're going to then identify what groups I'm looking to target, and within those groups, who am I targeting? A lot of times it might be younger people, activists, certain demographics. It could be the soccer moms, just different groups, because you're going to have different messages for different groups. The techniques. We will be talking about what techniques they use and how these are associated with the groups. And then finally, how do you know if this psychic attack was successful? What will you be looking for? What behavior or emotions will you be, will you see if you've had this success to be successful? Again, this is not some sort of secret. This is common knowledge. The key takeaway is we're under constant attack out there. And I don't know, from what I've seen, it's gotten worse in the last few months. And I think it's, maybe the election coming in, it's the whole virus. Right now, we're under, a lot of smoke alerts. So we're under a lot of physical, mental, and social stress. And this then makes us even more vulnerable. So some of the types of techniques they'll use is propaganda, misinformation. You'll see different names for it: psyops, cyber warfare, political warfare, fake news. I think we know what that. Conspiracy theories. I mean, this is there's no shortage of conspiracy theories, and they seem to create new ones every day. How is this done? The technique is, broadcast media, things like advertising, direct advertising, social media. Anybody who's used Facebook knows that they have very, very targeted, messaging for micro targeting, even search engine manipulation, hacking, go out, hack a website and go put something, maybe go link somebody's website to somebody, some nasty group or some nasty message. A lot of that. The objective. A lot of it is just divide. It's divide us as a people, distract people from what's going on, maybe delegitimize certain groups of people, discredit people, things like that. Intimidate. You want to intimidate people who may disagree with you, or just influence. So there's a lot of different objectives. The key to this is the emotional response. And I'm going to continue to hit on this is propaganda is about getting an emotional response. Whether it's anger, confusion, disgust, outrage, embarrassment, fear is a very, very common one. So we see psychic attacks are trying to get one of these emotions to do that. Who uses this? Everybody. Foreign governments do it. Politicians, political parties, activists, corporations, the social and mainstream media. So it's common techniques. We're exposed to it every day. If you're on Facebook, you're exposed to it. If you watch cable news, you're exposed to it. Even just reading internet knows. And it's cumulative. It causes a lot. It can cause a lot of damage for people, especially empaths and sensitive people. One of the key concepts is understanding perception. We each have our own perception of reality. There's a saying that goes, the map is not the territory. And what that really means is that we each perceive things differently. It's going to be based on our assumptions, our previous lives, and this is important. That recognizing other people are working through their perceptions. They may not be good or healthy perceptions, but they are their perceptions. And there's this concept called perception management, where you want to provide or limit specific information to your target audience in order to influence that. And if you look it up, perception management is a true word. It's currently it's a lot discussed within especially military and intelligence circles as a way to influence people. Deception. What is deception? It's a common term. It's a conscious and deliberate effort to manipulate the perceived reality of a target for your own advantage. So that's a lot of this. You're manipulating other people, how they see the world for your own advantage. We're going to talk a little bit about propaganda and disinformation as psychic attacks. Just some basic definitions. Propaganda is mostly true information that's designed to emotionally manipulate the people. A reasonably good way to tell if something's propaganda is if you read it and it causes, a significant emotional response. Good or bad, it's propaganda, and not all propaganda is bad. During World War II, the U.S. had a very major propaganda, campaign. But understand that's what it is. Disinformation is just fake news. It's largely untrue. Things like, hey, we faked the moon landing. It's fake news. I hope this is not a shock to anybody, but we really didn't land on the moon. So I personally watched it, telling you how old I am. Kind of like I said, is when we talk about influence targeting, the targets are the people who are going to be subjected to the psychic attack. And basically you can look at what groups or individuals they're going to be targeted to and their information channels. So different groups, you may use Facebook for some people. Maybe if you're talking about an older group, maybe it might be TV because they grew up in a time when, TV news was very, very different. You had Walter Cronkite and the news. If you're younger, it might be some sort of app. This is one of the things that there's in the cybersecurity world they're talking about is a lot of these apps coming out of very questionable countries with, clearly an intent to manipulate people. Understanding targets, and this is, a lot of it is, through micro targeting and things like that. You understand who your targets, what their beliefs are, what's their strengths. There's so much data being collected through the internet that you can, even in Facebook, they'll tell you if you look how you are perceived. It's always something to go out and check. Is it's like, what do they link you as, and you're going to get targeted ads specifically for that. And then if you say, I don't want to see that type of ad, you're providing them more information. And then they provide messages in a format that you appreciate. They can customize how they message it. And again, like I said, is Facebook, Instagram. Cognitive vulnerabilities. So this is something that we all have. We all have pre-existing beliefs. A common word is bias. I'm not a big fan of that because it has negative connotations, but we all have pre-existing beliefs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as our filters. We need to accept that. And some of these vulnerabilities make sense. Thousands of years ago when these cavemen, were out and they ran into another group, you didn't know who they were, so you had to assume they were dangerous. If you didn't know what it was, it would be considered dangerous. Here in our society, this is not necessarily as healthy. That you just because you don't know a group of people or this different ideas doesn't necessarily make them dangerous. And so this is something just consider is, it maybe make you uncomfortable, but just be aware. And propagandists love to go out and make new things or different groups of people seem dangerous. That's a lot of their basis. A little bit, we talk about it as propaganda. You're trying to evoke specific feelings and behaviors. If you think about that, you want to change how they think or behave. Um, and like I said, a lot of it is that is basically is you identify who the group is and what outcome you want from them. You know, specifically what emotional response that'll drive their beliefs or their behavior. Um, you know, basically is propaganda. It's usually intended to reach large numbers of people. Good propaganda realizes large numbers of people just kind of dismiss it, you know, but many won't. They'll have very simple messages, you know, peace, you know, no new taxes. These people are bad. Very simple messages, and it'll be very repetitive. Our subconscious accepts messages, even if they're wrong, if it's continually exposed to it. This is one of the things that we need to be aware of. Continual exposure to even a wrong or bad message is a form of psychic attack. Again, strong emotions, and then symbols. We'll talk a little bit more about, depending on the group, you know, things like the cross or the peace sign, a mother with a baby, the American flag or the swastika, all have very, very strong emotional. So, you know, if you start seeing, you know, a lot of these images, you know, you should start thinking is maybe this is some sort of psychic attack against it. Language is very important, and you know, this is something we've kind of talked about, you know, but it's important to, you know, how people use language is often very important. So extreme language, you know, using swearing or you know, as a common attempt to get people's attention. Name calling, this is a very common. They're trying to dehumanize another person or group, you know. Watch how they're doing it. They will try and make them seem less than human. Virtue words. This is, you know, again, common virtue words is like I said, family, empathy, compassion. And they use these words because, like I said, within the target audience, they may have certain meanings. They can often use them to mean something else, but by using that language, you're going to appeal to them, even if they mean something completely different. So that's where the manipulation comes. Overstatement, you know, a common one is compare everything to the Nazis. You know, people, you know, people who like pizza, pineapple on pizza. You know who else liked pineapple on pizzas? The Nazis. Don't know if it's true, probably not, but it's just a common way of trying to just overstate everything. And then metaphors. This is a very interesting technology, especially for people who do a lot of work in the pagan communities, because it's a very, very powerful tool. Metaphors are stories that you know, may have seemed to say something at one level, the conscious level, but the subconscious interprets at a completely different level. Metaphors are a way to bypass conscious filters. So it's a way to directly affect the subconscious. Another way is just look at how stories are done. So we're exposed to stories every day. If you read the newspaper, the internet, you watch cable news, and some common techniques are deletion. One is you just focus on certain aspects of the story. You may just ignore or just completely disregard certain aspects of the story that doesn't support your narrative. You be very, very clear that, you know, this is what I want this story to say. And, you know, there may be other information, even information that completely contradicts it. I get rid of that because it's about presenting my story. Distortion. A common one is just deliberately misrepresent somebody, you know. It's, take somebody and, you can maybe somebody who's, and make them seem like a good person or a bad person. You just distort it, it's rarely ever just completely, totally fake, but it may only vaguely have any relationship to the. And then generalization. This is a common tool used in the press where if they're trying to make a point, they'll bring in a couple of people, often very sympathetic, to give their story. And what they want you to do is by having these, pre-selected people giving you a story, they want you to assume that this then applies to everybody. So, again, these stories are often very interesting and sometimes very tragic or or very, supportive. But always be aware that they may be trying to make a point that may not necessarily be true in all cases. Images. Images are very, very powerful. Simple images. We also saw coloring. You see a lot of times where it's like, if you see a picture of somebody, if they're good, they're going to be very colorful, very bright, light is shining on them. If they're being portrayed in a negative manner, they're kind of shadowy and looking like they're hiding and sketching. You see this whenever the pictures, like I said, just be aware of how somebody's being presented or how something's being presented. And you'll have an understanding of what they're trying to message to you. Memes. These things, like I said, is we all basically just consider any political one of these propaganda. Just assume it, because it's basically, it's a common technique. The military actually uses this as part of their psychological warfare. But I picked two here that are mildly amusing and non-political, but they kind of you look at this, and if you're old like me, you probably know who these people are and have at least seen the show. If not, you can look it up there. But they're kind of amusing and they kind of generate, oh, okay, a little bit of laughter, hopefully. But there's a lot of nasty ones out there as well. So just be aware. It's a common technique. Logic, misuse of logic. This is a common one. You see this all the time. A politician is showing up, he's showing, with Alex said, is behind an American flag. I saw a commercial out there for investing in gold, where the guy was basically on an American battleship. And talking about, when the good old days when, we had our battleships and why you invest in gold. That's pure propaganda. It's trying to make that connection between investing in gold and the power of a battleship. No relationship. Testimonials, finding people to say really good things about you. Very, very common. And you're supposed to assume that these people are honest and knowledgeable. Again, think about commercials. Commercials are all about this. You get some famous stars sitting there saying, hey, this is a good, and daytime TV, working from home. If you ever watch TV during the day, this is really very common. It's like some star you haven't seen in a decade, is now pushing some product out there. All about testimonial. False conclusions. Simple one is, all fish swim, John swims, John is a fish. Your premises are good, just your conclusion is false. And then kind of the slippery slope argument is that, hey, if you don't support this really bad thing could happen. But, again, what is the likelihood of that? Again, they want to kind of build on this fear, even though it's not very likely. personal attacks. If anybody has ever watched Political, it pretty much starts degenerating down into political attack, into personal attacks. My opponent is evil and a space alien, and is going to destroy the world. You know, Sad, but it does work. And then post hoc arguments. If you support this, you must support this other thing, or if you don't support this, then you must believe this. And we're going to talk about countering some of these fallacies. We'll give you some tools to help you counter it. Good propaganda is a story, and this is a lot of it is it's about a story. And if you start seeing stories in the press or something is, and in a lot of stories there's a hero, somebody who's good, who's been doing really, and then there's a villain. And then so in the villain, you often oversimplify their things. They are evil because they want to do evil things. They may become motivated by a very simplistic thing like hate. Pretty much any TV show has that. Good, very simple, a good hero and a bad, evil villain. And so a lot of it is, identifying the story is going to be tailored to whoever the group is. So your heroes will always be very much like the group you're tailoring it. So, what's our target? What's the target in this? It's the subconscious. Most of us have heard this concept of, we only use 10% of our brain. It's not really true, but 90% of our mind is the subconscious. People in the pagan community, people who martial arts community, people who do yoga, they learn and train to access the subconscious using, guided visualization, trance work, breathing techniques. So these groups are very unique in that they learn to work with it. But most people in our world aren't necessarily experts at working with their subconscious mind. And so that makes them more vulnerable. One of the things, like I said, within our community is we do train a lot of people to do this, to work with our subconscious. So we have much more opportunities to learn to protect our subconscious. So propaganda evokes emotion. I keep pushing this. It's pretty much. But again, if you see something that causes anger, disgust, fear's a major one. Even joy or sadness, it's likely some sort of propaganda and a psychic attack. And again, some of the positive causing happiness is it may be a very, very positive. I personally try to post reasonably positive messages in my Facebook, or something that's funny in these stressful times, but I'm trying to get a response to people. If you want to call that propaganda, I mean, there may be some reasonableness to that, but it's about trying to kind of get a response. Okay, yeah, we've all had a tough week. We're all under a lot of stress because of the fires. Here's something that's kind of funny. So if you're on one of my Facebook friends, you may notice that. Occasionally trying to do that. Perception. This is a key thing. The concept of the map is not the territory. Psychic attacks are against people's perception of reality. We all have perceptions of reality. So the way to think about it, is we are bombarded by 2 million bits of information per second. We can process about 100 bits per second. So that means 99.95% of all information we're receiving is falling on the floor. And that's every single one of us. Maybe with training, you can get it to the point that you're getting 200 bits of information. That means that 99.9% of all data we're surrounded with, it gets false on the floor. So this is why two people can see the same movie and have completely different perceptions of it, or the same event. It's not that one is right or one is bad or one is good or one is evil. It's just their 100 bits of information may be different than your 100 bits. Filters. So again, we're going to talk a little bit about filters, how we filter information. A common, like I said, is the term is biases. Again, I'm not a big fan of it, but when people use the word biases, filters is more or less the same thing. If you want, here's a breakdown on how a psychic attack works. So the first thing is some sort of external event, some sort of story occurs. And again, if I can limit you what information you're getting, it makes the psychic attack much easier. If you only get your information from certain TV shows or certain news sources or certain people, that's half the work done of a psychic attack, because you've already limited the information source. You get exposure to a lot of different information sources, even ones that you don't like, or that you disagree with, or you find objectionable. By increasing that information sources, it just gives you more information to come in, and we process them through our basically five, sight, sound, feeling, smell, our sensors. It doesn't necessarily mean it's coming in that way, but that's generally how we process them. And then we go against the filters, how we filter. Again, you're seeing in here, you got your 2 million bits, your senses can only take in certain amounts, and then your filters are dropping vast amounts based on your values, beliefs, decisions, and memories. And then what it does is it then comes in and starts affecting your overall emotional state. So this story comes in. How does it make me feel? Wow, I feel really, really good. I read this great story about a puppy being saved, and that's really nice. Or it may make me feel very, very unhappy. I read this story about, something really horrible. And depending on your filters, your emotional state. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, this may affect your behavior. How do you respond to that? Does it make you go out and do something positive? Hey, I'm going to go out and help people, or maybe something negative. So it often affects our overall behavior. Memories. So we all have memories, and memories are important. And as we get older, our memories are become more and more important as we go. I mean, the difference, like I said, is older folks, start, like I said, is they have a whole data bank of memories that they can use. Oh, I remember why we didn't do that, because it was a bad, it was bad results. Younger people don't have that. So a lot of times they're much more open to doing things and so there needs to be some sort of balance. You don't want to be completely, limited based on your memories of bad things that may not have worked. On the other hand, you kind of want to have some sort of knowledge base of why something was a bad idea. And a lot of our conflicts in society is between that. People who have a rich history of memories and people who don't, who are very open to trying new things. And again, it's about balance. Neither one is good or bad. It's about being able to balance that. Past decisions, our past decisions, good and bad, will drive a lot of how we see the world. Beliefs, basically, how do we see the world? People often have very, very different beliefs. They're not necessarily good or bad, just different beliefs. And we need to learn to acknowledge that. And values and attitudes. Values are what's good. How do we decide what's good and bad? And different people in different groups have different values. So we need to recognize that, and this drives a lot of our filters. I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about NLP, neurolinguistic programming. The way to think about it is the neuro part is it's about how you think. The linguistic is about your language, how you use language. And programming is about your behavior. So how do you affect your people's behavior? How does the way you think and your language affect behavior? NLP is understanding how people think, behave, and communicate. It's about understanding their feelings, their language. It's often a tool of, in a positive way, it's a very powerful tool for therapy. It helps people change negative behavior. People who've had a lot of PTSD or trauma in their lives. NLP is a very, very powerful tool to help people change behavior. It's also the basis of much of the propaganda and disinformation. It's used by terrorist groups, foreign governments, the media. So just, it's one of those things that can be used in both a very positive manner and a less positive. Anchoring. So anchoring is when you just associate an emotion to some sort of object, a person, a smell, a sound. So a very common one is when we're all kids, we can all think of a place. If I were to ask you, can you think of a place that really brings back a good memory? Most of us can do that. Or smell that has a very powerful memory. They've been anchored in. Symbols. We talked a little bit about the swastika. And there's a definite negative emotion associated with that, and with good reason. But you can also create this. You can create this with symbols. Again, somebody, a politician standing behind an American flag or something else, or the advertising guy on a battleship talking about the feeling of stability and gold. This is all a type of anchoring. It's a type of psychic attack. It's subtle, but anchoring isn't necessarily always bad. It's a tool for helping change behavior, especially negative behavior like smoking or losing weight. But it can also have a negative impact as well. There's a whole bunch of laws, NLP laws. Some of the high ones is basically our brain and mind, we link objects with feelings, memories, and emotions. We all know that place. Again, sure, we can all think of a place when we were a kid that has a very powerful emotional appeal to us. Law of obligation. If somebody gives us something, we feel an obligation. A common sales technique. It's like they want somebody to make you feel obliged. If I give you something, you should feel obliged to do something. It's also very much used in social engineering and manipulation. So if you're going to go out and try and sneak into some sort of facility, if you go out and give somebody, a watchman or something like that, here, I bought you a coffee. Can you hold the door open for me? They're much more open to. People want a sense of belonging and acceptance. This is a very powerful feeling, and people use it as they want you to feel. Law of scarcity. This is another common technique you see is, the scare technique is that, if you don't support this, they're going to take away your rights or take away your money or do something really bad. So to take it away. So kind of associating with, trying to scare you that, if you don't do this, something, that you value is not going to be around in the future. Jungian projection. So we're going to talk a little bit about Jungian projection. And this is a very, very important concept because it's not talked a lot about in the whole propaganda and disinformation community, but it's the basis of a lot of it, and it's kind of one of the controversial parts of when we talk about shadow work. I'm sure that many of you have heard at least the term shadow work, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the shadow it's that part of, like I said, is that part of us that we keep hidden from ourselves and other people. And part of projection is when we attribute some part of ourselves to another group. This is very, very common. Is that whatever we see in other people is usually what's part of us. And again, it's not a very comfortable for a lot of people. It's not a very comfortable feeling that those evil things you see in other groups are usually mean that they're part of us. It's part of us that we can't, accept. So, for example, if we see, if we get angry or outraged when we see other people's selfishness, doesn't mean that these people aren't selfish, but the emotional response tends to be about, our subconscious is recognizing that within us. So, somebody, like I said, is getting angry, somebody who sees other people's selfishness and saying, that person is a jerk. I don't think I'm going to associate with them because of that behavior, versus getting outraged by it. Again, recognizing, and we'll talk a little bit more about how to deal with this through shadow work, but recognizing your emotional response in other people is a good part of how to protect yourself from psychic attack. Again, we don't see it in ourselves. A lot of times, like I said, it's out there, but we just don't see that part of ourselves. And it's a common way to manipulate people, psychic attack. Protecting your mind. So this is kind of the key. I'm not going to go very deep into it because some of these are very deep, but some things to do. I mean, it's more than just, things in terms of shielding or grounding and centering, because you can't do that in our society, walk around, like that. We're just, basically inundated with so much information. And so but there's ways to strengthen your psyche. And so this is kind of what we're going to do. Critical thinking, things like use reliable sources of information, recognize that. I'm not saying that they may not be biased. There's a lot of good information that may be biased, but they should be accurate. Sources that in general, don't necessarily overwhelmingly do propaganda or emotional triggering. They certainly could be very, have a certain perception of reality that they follow, but if they're not trying to manipulate you, so go for high quality, accurate information. Understand the content and the goals of the author. We'll talk about understanding the stories. What's their agenda? What are they trying to do? Are they, trying to make you believe, hey, understand this situation, or are they trying to make you angry? Recognize that there's more than one reasonable solution. This is a common thing, is that, not everybody that disagrees with you is wrong or bad. Sometimes good people have different opinions, and this is something that we need to recognize out there as a way of psychic self-defense. I may not agree with you. I think you're wrong, but that your view isn't necessarily make you bad, or even it's necessarily bad itself. And then, like I said, and then just recognize facts that are relevant. A lot of news stories, they'll lead with a headline and then pack in a whole bunch of information that's really not relevant. So they just, like I said, it might be that they're being paid per word, or it's that they're just trying to throw everything in the kitchen sink as a propaganda tool. Critical thinking: who, what, where, when, why, and how. So if you see some information, ask this. Anytime you see a story that kind of gets you, is who's involved, who are these people, who is benefiting from this, who is getting harmed from this, um, what is happening, what's the strength and weaknesses of their discussion, what are other alternative views of this, where did this happen. A lot of times I see a lot of propaganda where they're really vague on where and when this happened. It's like, not an uncommon is somebody will post a very emotionally triggering story. You go search at it and find out it happened 5 or 10 or even decades ago. But they're trying to, basically, they assume most people aren't going to check it, and they're trying to trigger an emotional response. Why did this happen? Why is this a problem? I've, I'm in a discussion in our local town where we're talking about spending money, and it's like, okay, and my first question is, why is this a problem? And that's always, why is this the best solution? And then how? How is this similar to another problem? How did this occur? How does this benefit us or other people? Just practice that. If you read something, just ask the questions: who, what, where, when, why, and how. And if you start finding, at least half of those questions aren't answered, be very cautious about that story. Suddenly you're going to say, maybe I shouldn't be so trusting of this. Metamodeling is related to this. It's some questions that you can ask. And in metamodeling, you want to listen to what's being said. So don't prejudge it, but listen to it. And then ask yourself, what's missing from here? What just doesn't make sense? You look at that story, and what is this reasonable? Things along those lines. And some common questions, what you see is, it's like, all the experts agree. Which experts? Who are these experts? Where did they get trained? If things like that. Another one is, well, all those people get the jobs, but not me. Okay, who are those people? What jobs are they getting? Why are they getting the jobs? You start asking questions like that. Maybe, if it's just static content on the news, or, ask themselves, is this information in the article? If not, start expressing some skepticism. If you're dealing with a person, ask this. Just ask them. I was like, when they say, is all of those people, hate puppies? All of them? Every single one of them? Is there a possibility maybe somebody there doesn't hate puppies? Okay, maybe there's somebody there that doesn't. Who do you think the people who don't hate them? This is kind of that type of thinking, is you start approaching that. And somebody who's very interested in the discussion will engage with you. They're like, oh, okay, that's a good point. Let's talk about this. Propagandists won't. They're going to go out and act very hostile and try and discredit you because you're a threat to their propaganda. If you start using questions like this, people will see you as a threat because you are not accepting their psychic attack. You are countering it back. And if you're doing it in a public forum like Facebook, you're endangering their whole, propaganda campaign. Again, anytime you see all or always, everybody, this is a key word that you should, counter to, is everybody, all of those people. There's no exceptions. just assume, that's a classic psychic attack there. A common one we see is that if you believe this, you must believe that. Well, I do believe this. Why do I have to believe this other thing? Are there people who don't believe that? And it helps keep you protected, because as soon as you start asking those questions, you're filtering and you're like, wow, there's a problem with this. And they're trying to manipulate. Sense making. So this is understand the story. So a lot of times we talked about the power. They're trying to do a story uh, on you, and never accept anybody's story. A lot of times on the Facebook, you're seeing somebody has a very heart wrenching story out there. It's like, who is this person? How do I know this is true? If somebody starts demanding that you accept the story without even thinking about it, that's a red flag. What you should do is you should look at situations and kind of look at, try and invent a logical, consistent, and coherent story of what are you seeing? Why did this happen? And again, if you're not sure if the story is, balanced or logical, run it by a neutral person. Here's what I think is happening. You think this is, so what do you think of that? Get their response. But learning to read the situation. A common technique I suggest is go to the mall when maybe things open or safe, or someplace where you can watch people. Create a story. What is the story? If you see people out there, what is their story? Learn to read the situation, and practice that. And the military did this. They came up with the concept of sense making. The press used the term psychic marines. It's not psychic, but it's about learning to understand how others think and perceive the world. So this is a very powerful tool. Just learn how other people perceive it. Don't judge. Recognize that. Account for your own uncertainty. I don't know this information. That's okay. If you don't know something, there's nothing wrong with that. And learn to, understand your own biases, or at least filters. Hey, I see the information this way. I recognize that, and that will affect how I might see this situation. And just recognize that, and then be willing to change, to update it. As you get more information, be willing to accept, yes, this is different than I thought. There's nothing wrong with it. As we get more information, they will, like I said, as our views hopefully will change. This is an important part of, accepting, when you're going, being inundated with information, it's like, instead of fighting and all, saying, okay, this seems reasonable. I'm going to go out and consider that. It may be right or may be wrong, but by willing to accept information, it makes us healthy. And then shadow work. I'm sure, let's see. Oh, yes, this is an hour and a half uh, session. I'm finishing up here. Then we're going to do a guided visualization to kind of help strengthen your psyche. So just be aware. We're probably, like I said, about 5 more minutes of this, death by PowerPoint. And then we're going to do a guided visualization. And I'll kind of give you a little more information about strengthening your psyche. And the Jungian shadow is basically, we talked a little bit, it's the dark side of us. It's not always, but it's often the source of our negative emotions: rage, anger, outrage, fear, greed, selfishness. Again, what bothers you in others is usually a repressed part of yourself, part of us that we fail to acknowledge. It's often very hidden. And so this is what makes shadow work so difficult. And you can recognize your shadow by paying attention to your emotions toward other people. And this is the key is, if you see your, coworker or somebody who's aggressive, arrogant, inconsiderate, or intolerant, what is your response? Again, if you have like this kind of, you're an idiot, I have nothing to do with them, I want to avoid them because they're not good people, that's one thing. But if you start finding yourself getting emotionally outraged, anger, filled with hate, there may be some shadow work there. So it's not that, their behavior is not bad. It often is. It's your response to it. And, psychic attacks often depend on that. But shadow work is a good way to help you understand this. One way is just, to every day, take 5 or 10 minutes and reflect on your interactions with people. Hi, how did I ended up, talking with this other person and they kind of triggered me. Why did that happen? What can I do in the future not to let that happen? And it could be something positive. Wow, I met this really good person and they had a positive impact on me. I may be happy. I'm like, that's something that you want to explore as well. Because it's something you may want to include future. It's like, hey, this is something that's part of me. How can I strengthen it? But as part of shadow work is getting to know it and making it part of yourself. And again, we're not going to do a shadow work as part of this sort of guided visualization, because that's some deep work. But we're going to kind of help strengthen this and make you aware of this. So we've got a couple minutes of questions. Are there any questions before we go into our guided visualization? I know some people had to leave, and that's why I said it's a little bit on the long side, but I wanted to see if there's anything, there's a lot of information here. And let's see.
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat yet, but
okay. Well, good. Like I said, I know like I said, a lot of people had to leave, but I appreciate all of those who stay. The guided visualization is what we're going to do is we're going to walk through, open up your chakras. And the chakras are our connection to our reality. And then we're going to do some techniques to kind of anchor in some self-defense techniques so that when, you're going out every day, you can sit there and recognize, okay, wow, that's a psychic attack there I just saw on TV, or this other person, was trying to manipulate me. Do we have, let's see, do you have a tip for staying safe in a circle when doing magic? Excellent, excellent. A lot of it is, focusing on, I don't teach a lot of shielding. I teach a lot of connection. It's like a lot of it is learning to manage your own state. We'll actually do a little bit of that in our, that's actually one of the exercises in our guided visualization that, how you can anchor in, I am feeling safe and calm here. And regardless of what's going on, this will allow you to kind of manage your own emotional state, regardless of, what's actually happening. Well, good. So why don't we're going to do a guided visualization. And I want everybody, this is going to be very, very safe. So as I mentioned, I'm a hypnotherapist. I do this professionally, but I want everybody to be very comfortable. And so we're going to keep everybody safe. If you want, you're free to put on a video of the video and I can watch you and make sure you're doing okay. If not, feel free not to do that as well. So what I just want to do is have everybody look at being safe and comfortable. So, and I'm kind of, let's see. Well, good. So everybody just get very relaxed and very comfortable. However that is, whether you're standing or sitting or lying down, and just breathe in through your nose and mouth. Um, I know it's kind of maybe smoky. Just as best you can, keep yourself healthy as you breathe in, relaxing. Feel the bringing in this healthy air into your lungs, healing. And just keep your eyes open and look at a spot on the wall or the ceiling as you breathe. Just watch this spot, relaxing, breathing as you get very comfortable. And then just take a deep breath and hold it for a few seconds, holding it, relaxing. And when you're ready, release it, letting it go. And when you do this, you're going to feel so relaxed, so comfortable, relaxing deeper as you exhale. And we're going to now open up our chakras. Chakras are our connection to reality. There are 7 chakras. The lowest level is the root chakra, our tailbone. Think of it as your tailbone. And it's often associated with the color red, blood red. It's our connection to the earth. We are feeling very connected to the earth, our planet, Gaia. It goes by many names as we open it up and breathe in. And next, we move up to our sacral chakra in our lower abdomen. It's associated with the color orange, orange of a setting sun. It's part of our connection to sex, relationships, passion, sacral chakra. Breathe in and feel that opening connection. Opening up, breathing, relaxing as you move up to your solar plexus. The solar plexus chakra is our connection to our physical body. Many psychic attacks affect us physically. And by opening up the solar plexus chakra associated with the color yellow, it's the yellow of the noonday sun, we are connecting ourselves to our body, protecting our body, opening it up, breathing in, opening the solar plexus. As we then move to our heart chakra. The heart chakra is in the middle of our chest, breathing in, relaxing. This is our connection to our emotions. Propaganda and disinformation often manipulate them, and closed chakras make us more vulnerable. By opening up our chakras, we freely connect to our emotional self, that part of where we experience our emotions, feelings of love and passion, connection, opening that up, moving up to our throat chakra. The throat chakra is how we communicate. And many times we're afraid to communicate our feelings, our beliefs for various reasons. And as we open up our throat chakra, associated with the color blue, blue of the light blue of the ocean, beautiful ocean blue, we feel that opening up, our willingness to communicate our feelings and our beliefs, not having that fear, knowing that people will listen. Open up that chakra, share our feelings, beliefs, concerns. And we then move up to our third eye chakra between our eyebrows. This is our connection to our psyche, our psychic connection. That part of us that we don't talk about, but many people have, a deep psychic connection to ourselves and our world, associated with the color indigo, a deep, deep blue. And then finally, our crown chakra, often viewed as 2 inches above our head, associated with the color violet, the violet of deep space, almost black. That connection is our connection to our spiritual self, that part of us that's beyond ourselves, our spirituality, whether it's deity or our inner self, however we see ourselves spiritually. And as we now have opened up these chakras, we feel the energy flowing through from the crown chakra to the root chakra. Everything from our spirituality to our psychic connection, to our throat, to talking, to our feelings and body, our sacral self, and our connection to the earth is now open. And we're going to now connect to our psychic self, the third eye. It's between our eyebrows and 1 inch behind. This is the power of our subconscious. Breathe in, relax. We feel ourselves connecting to that part of us, that magical part of us, the subconscious, our inner self. It goes by many names. And this is now connecting to us. Gives us great power to protect ourselves. And as you focus now, relaxed on this third eye, the chakra, you recognize that after you leave here, you're going to recognize much more about attempts at psychic attacks, whether you're watching TV, listening to the news, reading the internet, or on social media, you're going to recognize many of the techniques, but it's not going to affect you. It's like watching this through a wall, a mirror, a large mirror. You will watch this information, these techniques, these influencing and propaganda techniques, and you will see them, but they will not emotionally connect to you. Your psyche, your filters will protect you because you recognize that. This awareness is like looking through it, through a thick glass pane as you watch them from far away. And you may recognize them, but they don't affect you. And as you continue to relax, you're going to notice now that you will often ask questions. When you see information, you can ask questions like who, what, where, when, why, because you want to know. You're curious. You want more information. You are now someone who recognizes that, you have a deeper understanding and want a deeper understanding there. And you recognize information that may not be healthy for you. If you're exposed to information, images, or stories that you do not feel healthy or help you, you can walk away, you can ignore them. You are under no obligation to continue exposed to beliefs and views and stories that you do not find healthy. You don't need to argue with it or get angry. You just recognize that this is not something that's healthy for you and that you should move on and walk away because there's so much more in this life that can make you feel better. Your powerful intuition and psyche will also help you understand situations differently. Your psyche, you'll look at situations and ask, what is the story here? What's really happening? What am I seeing? You'll be able to see things differently because you'll see its story, a logical story that makes sense to you. And you'll feel good. It's like you don't necessarily have to accept other people's stories. You will have that power to create your own story, recognize it. People you talk to will realize that's a very logical story. That's very possibly what happened to it. I can see that. This capability to be able to do stories and ask questions, this openness is very, very powerful. As you now, you'll also recognize within yourself that perhaps times you may meet people or read something or watch something that makes you uncomfortable. It may give you anger, sadness, or fear, and you will recognize that that's part of you, and you will acknowledge it. You may not necessarily make it go away, but you will acknowledge that this is part of you. Yes, that did make me angry or unhappy or sad, and just recognizing part of you and acknowledging and accepting yourself and loving yourself because of that. You're recognizing that your shadow is trying to protect you and acknowledge that. Even if it's uncomfortable, you acknowledge it. If you decide you want to change it, you have that power. That power is within you if you want to change how you are affected by information or people or situations. You have that power. And I want you now finally think of a place and a time you felt really very comfortable. Maybe when you were younger, someplace at a beach or a mountain or a resort, someplace that you felt so amazingly comfortable. And just visualize or imagine yourself in this place, how it makes you feel if you were there, experiencing this place. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you hear? What is the experience in being this place that you are so comfortable that you love? And just take a moment and bring that into you, that feeling. I want you to think about as you're imagining or visualizing yourself in this place of another situation where you felt very comfortable and safe. You felt good. You may be alone or with people, but you felt very safe, very protected, comfortable situation. And as you continue to think about this place that you used to be and this situation that you felt very safe and protected, I want you to give it a name. What is this name that you want to give this feeling of being in this place of great comfort and feeling safe and protected? Give this a name. It can be a magical name. It's a name that means something to you. And understand this name as you use it. It's going to be a name that you can call anytime you feel uncomfortable or you want to feel safe and protected. This name, you will think of this name, powerful, and you'll feel the same exact feeling as you do now. You're in a safe, protected place that gives you great feeling of joy and comfort. And this is a tool you can use to protect yourself if during the day you're feeling overwhelmed by what you're seeing on TV, on Facebook, at work, or just meeting with people that may not be comfortable. You will use this powerful, magical name, and that will put you in this comfortable situation that you can then move on, and other people's negativity will not affect you. And as you now finish up that name, And that experience, as it gets stronger and stronger, comfort deeper, feeling this, you will have this. And then maybe once a day or every other day, just call it, bring it up, let yourself experience this joy, this pleasantness that's so powerful, and release it, let it go, knowing you can bring it back anytime just by calling this very powerful name that you know. Whether it's a secret or not, you can decide, but you will protect yourself using this magical, powerful name. And as you release yourself, letting go, you're going to find yourself a little bit changed after this work, more aware, and feeling a little bit safer because you are now have important knowledge on what the psychic attack you're seeing. And no matter what the world brings over the next few days and weeks and months, you have some tools and knowledge to protect yourself, to keep yourself safe, that you can use whenever you want. Coming back, 5, you're feeling so relaxed. 4, ready to move on and attend other amazing workshops. 3, coming back, recognizing that, whatever this next week comes, you are ready. 2, 1, and when you're ready, open your eyes, relax, and come on back. Good. Everybody okay?
Well, I've not seen anybody cry out for help in the chat.
Yeah, and if you've got, if you want to ask questions, we have a couple minutes, 6 minutes. I'm more than happy to answer it. Anything we did about my lecture, about our journey, things. I'm more than happy to, appreciate you staying till the end.
Looks like we maybe only have 2 other people in here, so I've set it so you can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask Rich a question.
Yeah.
At least I hope I've set it so you can unmute yourself. Thank you very much for the workshop.
Well, so if there's no other questions, I'm happy to let you go. Thank you for having me and definitely staying. And I hope you found this very useful, in whatever happens, going forward. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, everybody.
You too. All right, guys, I'm going to end this. Have a lovely day.